Hey everybody, it's Mr. Ron back again to have a little look today at a little bit more of Kenzuki's Kingdom. So we're going to read a little bit more of our story and we're going to have a little think about what's been going on in the story. So just as a little reminder, when we started on Friday, we'd read a little bit about Michael and his family and where he lived and the type of life he lived and the fact that his family loved to go out on boats and things and that he had quite a happy life. We're going to read on and we're going to find out what's happening because just when we left it, if you remember, Michael's parents had both found out they were going to be made redundant. They were going to lose their jobs. So we're going to read on and see what happens next. So then the letter arrived. Stella Artois savaged it as it came through the letterbox. There were puncture holes in it and it was damp, but we could read enough. The brickworks were going to close down. They were both being made redundant. There was a terrible silence at the breakfast table that morning. After that, we never went sailing on Sundays anymore. I didn't have to ask why not. They both tried to find other jobs, but there was nothing. A creeping misery came over the house. That's a great way of describing it, isn't it? Not just saying, we were sad. A creeping misery crept over the house. Sometimes I'd come home and they just wouldn't be speaking. They'd argue a lot about little niggly things, and they'd never been like that. My father stopped fixing things around the house. He was scarcely ever home anyway. If he wasn't looking for a job, he'd be down in the pub. When he was home, he'd just sit there, flicking through endless yachting magazines and saying nothing. I tried to stay out of the house and play football as much as I could, but then Eddie moved away because his father had found a job somewhere down south. Football just wasn't the same without him. The Mudlarks disbanded. Everything was falling apart. Then, one Saturday, I came home from my paper round and found my mother sitting at the bottom of the stairs and crying. She'd always been so strong, I'd never seen her like this before. Silly beggar, she said. Your dad's a silly beggar, Michael, that's what he is. What's he done? I asked her. He's gone off, she told me. And I thought she meant for good. He wouldn't hear reason. Oh no, he's had this idea, he says. He wouldn't tell me what it was, only that he sold the car, that we're moving south and he's going to find us a place. I was relieved and quite pleased, really. South must be nearer to Eddie. She went on, if he thinks I'm leaving this house, then I'm telling you he's got another thing coming. Why not? I said. Not much here. Well, there's the house for a start, then there's Gran, and there's school. There's other schools, I told her. She became steaming angry then, angrier than I'd ever known her. You want to know what was the last straw, she said. It was you, Michael, you going off in your paper round this morning. You know what your dad said? Well, I'll tell you, shall I? Do you know something, he says? There's only one lousy wage coming at this house, Michael's paper money. How do you think that makes me feel, eh? My son's 11 and he's got a job, and I haven't. She steadied herself for a moment or two before she went on. Her eyes filled with fierce tears. I'm not moving, Michael. I was born here, and I'm not going. No matter what he says, I'm not leaving. I was there when the phone call came a week or so later. I knew it was my father. My mother said very little, so I couldn't understand what was going on. Not until she sat me down afterwards and told me, he sounds different, Michael. I mean, like his old self, like his very old self, like he used to be when I first knew him. He's found us a place. Just pack your stuff and come, he says. Fareham, somewhere near Southampton, right on the sea, he says. There's something very different about him, I'm telling you. My father did indeed seem a changed man. He was waiting for us when we got off the train. All bright-eyed again and full of laughter. He helped us with the cases. It's not far, he said, ruffling my hair. You wait till you see it, monkey face. I've got it all sorted, the whole thing. And it's no good you trying to talk me out of it, either of you. I've made up my mind. What about? I asked him. You'll see, he said. Stella Artois bounded along ahead of us, her tail held high and happy. We all felt like that, I think. In the end, we got a bus because the cases were too heavy. When we got off, we were right by the sea. There didn't seem to be any houses anywhere, just a yachting marina. What are we doing here? My mother asked. There's someone I want you to meet. A good friend of mine. She's called Peggy Sue. She's been looking forward to meeting you. I've told her all about you. My mother frowned at me in puzzlement. I wasn't any the wiser either. All I knew for certain was that he was being deliberately mysterious. We struggled on with our suitcases, the gulls crying over the head, the yacht masts clapping around us, and Stella yapping at all of it, until at last he stopped right by a gangplank that led up to a gleaming dark blue yacht. He put the cases down and turned to face us. He was grinning from ear to ear. Here she is, he said. Let me introduce you. This is the Peggy Sue, our new home. Well? Considering everything, my mother took it pretty well. She didn't shout at him. She just went very quiet, and she stayed quiet all through his explanation, down in the galley over a cup of tea. It wasn't a spur of the moment thing, you know. I've been thinking about it a long time, all those years working in the factory. All right, maybe I was just dreaming about it in those days. Funny when you think about it. If I hadn't lost my job, I'd never dared do it, not in a million years. He knew it wasn't making much sense. All right then, here's what I thought. What is it that we all love doing most? Sailing, right? Wouldn't it be wonderful, I thought, if we could just take off and sail around the world? There's people who've done it. Blue water sailing, they call it. I've read about it in the magazines. Like I said, it was just a dream to start with. And then, no job, and no chance of a job. What did the man say? Get on your bike, so why not a boat? We've got our redundancy money. What little there was of it. There's a bit saved up and the car money. Not a fortune, but enough. What to do with it? I could put it all in the bank like the others did, but what for? Just to watch it dribble away till there was nothing left? Or I thought, or I could do something really special with it. A once-in-a-lifetime thing. We could sail around the world. Africa, South America, Australia, Pacific. We could see places we only ever dreamed of. We sat there completely dumbstruck. Oh, I know what you're thinking, he went on. You're thinking, all we've ever done is reservoir sailing, dinghy sailing. You're thinking he's gone crazy, loopy in the head. You're thinking it's dangerous. You're thinking we'll be flat broke. But I've thought it all out. I even thought of your gran. There's a thing. We won't be gone forever, will we? She'll be here when we get back, won't she? She's perfectly healthy. We've got the money. I've done my sums. We're going to do 6 months training. We'll be away a year, 18 months maybe, just so long as the money lasts. We're going to do it safe, do it properly. Mum, you'll do your Yachts Master certificate. Oh, didn't I say? I didn't, did I? You'll be the skipper, Mum. I'll be the first mate and handyman. Michael, you'll be ship's boy. And Stella, well, Stella can be the ship's cat. He was full of it, breathless with excitement. We'll train ourselves up, do a few trips across the channel to France, maybe over to Ireland. We'll get to know this boat like she's one of us. She's a 42-foot bowman, best mate, best design, safest there is. I've done my homework. 6 months' time, we'll be off around the world. It'll be the adventure of a lifetime, our one chance. We'll never get another one. What do you think then? Excellent, I breathed, and that was exactly what I thought. And I'll be skipper, you say? My mother asked. Aye, aye, Captain. My father laughed and gave her a mock salute. What about Michael's school, she went on. I thought of that too. I asked in the local school down here. It's all arranged. We'll take all the books he'll need. I'll teach him. You'll teach him. He'll teach himself. I'll tell you something for nothing. He'll learn more in a couple of years at sea than he ever would in that monkey school of his. Promise. She took a sip of tea and then nodded slowly. All right, she said. And I saw she was smiling. Why not? Go ahead then. Buy her the boat. I already have, said my father. Of course it was madness. They knew it. Even I knew it. But it simply didn't matter. Thinking back, it must have been a kind of inspiration, driven by desperation. Everyone warned us against it. Gran came visiting and stayed on board. It was all quite ridiculous, she said. Reckless, irresponsible. She was full of doom and gloom. Icebergs, hurricanes, pirates, whales, supertankers, freak waves. She heaped up horror upon horror, thinking to frighten me, and so frighten off my mother and father. She succeeded in terrifying me all right, but I never showed it. What she didn't understand was that we three were already bound together now by a common lunacy. We were going, and nothing and no one could stop us. We were doing what people do in fairy tales. We were going to seek adventure. To begin with, it all happened much as my father had planned it, except the training took a lot longer. We soon learned that handling a 42-foot yacht was not just dinghy sailing in a bigger boat. We were tutored by a whiskered old mariner from the yacht club, Bill Parker. Barnacle Bill we called him, but not to his face, of course. He'd been twice round Cape Horn and done on 2 single-handed Atlantic crossings. He'd been across the channel. More times than you've had hot dinners, me lad. To tell the truth, none of us liked him much. He was a hard taskmaster. He treated me and Stella Artois with equal disdain. To him, all animals and children were just a nuisance on board ship. Nothing but a liability. So I kept up his way as much as I could, and so did Stella Artois. To be fair to him, Barnacle Bill did know his business. By the time we'd finished with us, and my mother was given her certificate, we felt we could sail the Peggy Sue anywhere. He had inculcated in us a healthy respect for the sea, but at the same time we were confident we could handle just about anything the sea could hurl at us. Mind you, there were times I was scared rigid. Do you know what? I'm going to stop there for today. Now, we're getting a bit further through the story. So now Michael's family have decided, well, Dad has decided that they're going to go on this trip around the world. They're going to take their passion for sailing, and because of their circumstances, he's thought, right, let's go for it. So very interesting. We'll find out later what's going to happen. What I thought might be a really nice task for today would be to go away and have a little think about Michael and have a think about what we know about him and how we picture him. So what I thought might be really nice is if you go away and have a little think about Michael and perhaps try drawing a picture of him. How do you picture Michael so far in the story? Because whenever we read, we get a picture in our mind about how the characters might look, and we learn little things from little bits the author gives us, little bits of information. So go away, your little task for today, and have a think about Michael. Think about what he might look like. See if you could draw a picture. Perhaps around your picture, you could write some words to describe him. What does he look like? What's his personality like? So I would definitely write some words such as he's quite brave, because I think this is quite a big thing that his family are doing, quite scary, and he seems to be taking it fairly in his stride. I think he's a responsible young man. I think he's he likes the idea of adventure. So go away, your task for today, and have a little think about Michael. Perhaps draw a picture, perhaps write some descriptions around the outside of your picture. What do you think Michael looks like? So there's your little task for today, and I'll be back again tomorrow with another little task for us to think about. Okay, take care. Bye.